Think about the exact moment you realize you're getting sick. It usually starts with a subtle scratch in the back of your throat, a sudden wave of exhaustion, or a slight, uncontrollable shiver. Today, you know exactly what to do. You open a bathroom cabinet, find a Bristol pack of pills, swallow one with a glass of water, and crawl into a soft, warm bed. Within hours, your fever breaks. You go back to your life, barely registering that your body was just at war. But for over 300,000 years of human existence, that blister pack did not exist. For 99.9% of our history, a simple scratch from a thorn or a mild cough could be the beginning of a terrifying end. We look back at our ancient ancestors and often assume their lives were brutal, short, and devoid of empathy. We imagine a harsh world driven strictly by the survival of the fittest, where anyone who fell behind was simply abandoned to the unforgiving wilderness. But the fossil record tells a completely different, profoundly moving story. Long before the first hospital was ever built, long before humanity understood what a germ or a virus even was, our ancestors were performing complex surgeries, synthesizing painkillers, and fiercely protecting the sick. If you were permanently sent back 5,000 or 50,000 years into the past, the lack of modern medicine is what would terrify you the most. How did the earliest humans figure out how to heal themselves without science? They did not have textbooks, microscopes, or laboratories. They had something much older. They had pure instinct and an unbreakable connection to the natural world. This concept is known as zoopharmacognosy, which is the ability of animals to instinctively self-medicate. Early humans were masterful, silent observers. They watched the predators and the prey around them. They noticed that when a bear awoke from hibernation feeling sluggish or ill, it would dig up and consume a very specific type of root. They watched primates who, when suffering from stomach parasites, would ignore their usual sweet fruits and instead swallow whole, rough, abrasive leaves. These leaves would act like a physical scrub brush, clearing the parasites from their intestines as they passed through their digestive system. Our ancestors paid attention. They began to experiment with the flora around them. This was an unimaginably dangerous process. Discovering which plants were medicine and which plants were fatal poison required a brutal process of trial and error. People undoubtedly died testing these boundaries, but the survivors passed their discoveries down through generations. They engaged in practices like geophagy, the deliberate eating of specific types of earth and clay. When an ancient human accidentally consumed a toxic plant or spoiled meat, the resulting stomach pain was agonizing. Instinctively, they learned that swallowing certain clays would bind to the toxins in their gut, neutralizing the poison before it could kill them. They were utilizing early pharmacology without knowing a single chemical formula. We have even found the fossilized dental plaque of Neanderthals living in what is now Europe, and hidden within that plaque are traces of poplar tree bug. This might sound insignificant until you realize that poplar bark is a natural source of salicylic acid. Salicylic acid is the exact same active chemical compound found in modern aspirin. Tens of thousands of years before the invention of the pharmaceutical industry, early humans were actively seeking out and consuming natural painkillers. They understood the relief, even if they could not explain the chemistry. But managing a headache or a mild fever is one thing. What happened when the physical trauma was catastrophic? Imagine you are a hunter-gatherer and a hunt goes terribly wrong. You suffer a shattered femur or a massive blow to the skull. In the wild, nature dictates that a severe injury equals immediate death. But this is exactly where early humans decided to rebel against nature. This is where human compassion was born. Deep inside a cave in modern-day Iraq, archaeologists discovered the remains of a Neanderthal man who fundamentally changed how we view our past. He had suffered unimaginable physical trauma. The left side of his face had been crushed, leaving him partially or entirely blind in one eye. His right arm had been severely shattered and amputated above the elbow. He suffered from advanced arthritis and widespread bone disease. In the wild, a creature in this condition would not last a single night. Yet, analyzing his bones revealed an impossible truth. This man lived for years, possibly decades, after sustaining these catastrophic injuries. He survived because his tribe simply refused to let him die. They brought him food, likely chewing it for him when his teeth failed. They kept the fire burning to keep him warm. They shielded him from predators. He was not a burden to them. His survival was a testament to their humanity. When compassion alone was not enough, early humans took drastic measures. They became the world's first surgeons. Consider the sheer agony of a toothache. Before modern diets, our ancestors still suffered from severe dental decay due to the tough, fibrous roots they chewed and the grit that naturally found its way into their food. An infected tooth could easily lead to a fatal blood infection. In Italy, archaeologists found a human tooth that is 14,000 years old. It contains a cavity that was intentionally hollowed out and scraped clean using tiny, sharp flint tools. Uncle's, after the rot was excruciatingly scraped away, the ancient dentist packed the hole with natural beeswax to protect the exposed nerve from the air and prevent further infection. Imagine sitting on the dirt floor of a cave, fully awake, feeling a stone tool carving into the exposed nerve of her tooth. People endured this sheer agony because the alternative was death. And for the most severe head traumas, they performed a practice called trepanation. Across the globe, we find human skulls with perfectly round holes carved directly into the bone. When a tribe member suffered a severe head injury and their brain began to swell, ancient healers would use sharpened stones to painstakingly scrape away the skull to relieve the pressure. Try to imagine the sheer terror of this procedure. There was no anesthesia to numb the agony. There was no sterile operating room. There was only the intense pain, the scraping of stone against bone, and the desperate hope of survival. The most staggering realization is that a vast majority of these skulls show significant bone healing around the edges of the holes. This means the patients did not survive the brutal surgery, the near for years afterward. Their communities nursed them through the unimaginable trauma of ancient brain surgery and brought them back to health. As humanity evolved, our understanding of sickness became more complex. Illness was no longer just a physical ailment, it became a spiritual crisis. If you fell mysteriously ill, shivering with a high fever in the dead of night, your community did not just hand you a medicinal herb and walk away. Sickness was a collective event. The entire tribe would gather around you. The fire would be built up, casting massive shadows against the cave walls. The shaman, or healer of the group, would begin rhythmic chanting, beating drums, and performing intense immersive rituals. For a long time, modern science dismissed this as mere superstition. But recent advancements in psychology and neuroscience suggest something incredible. We live in an era where our brains are constantly misfiring due to modern stimuli. We feel our phones vibrate in our pockets when nothing is there, hallucinating notifications because our brains are expecting a connection. Our minds are incredibly powerful, capable of inventing physical sensations out of thin air. Ancient humans harnessed this exact neurological power, but they used it to heal. These ancient rituals triggered one of the most powerful biological mechanisms in the human body, the placebo effect. But the placebo effect is not a trick of the mind. It is a highly evolved physiological response. When a sick, terrified human was surrounded by the overwhelming sensory experience of their entire tribe fighting for their life, their brain responded. The intense feeling of safety and community support triggered a massive release of endorphins, naturally suppressing pain. It drastically lowered cortisol, the stress hormone that shuts down the immune system. By feeling the collective love and protection of their people, the patient's body was given the ultimate biological signal to heal. The ritual itself was a potent medicine. Now, think about what happens today when you catch a terrible virus. What is your immediate instinct? You isolate. You retreat to your bedroom, draw the curtains, and close the door. You lie alone in the dark, perhaps illuminated only by the cold, blue light of your smartphone, scrolling endlessly to distract yourself from the discomfort. You try to avoid bothering anyone. You fight your battle in complete solitude. But for hundreds of thousands of years, your nervous system was programmed to experience healing as a profoundly communal event. Healing meant the warmth of the fire, the sound of familiar voices, and the physical presence of your entire world gathered around you to keep the dark at bay. So if you ever find yourself lying sick in bed, feeling a sudden, heavy wave of unexplained loneliness, and wishing that someone was there to just sit with you and take care of you, you are not being weak. Your brain is not making things up. Your body is simply longing for the ancient firelight. It is remembering what it took to survive.